welcome to this Barclays webinar titled Data Privacy, What Do You Need to Know? My name's Chris and I'm a Digital Engagement Manager here at Barclays. As a Digital Engagement Manager, it's my role to help businesses improve their relationship with digital, using digital channels to help them win business and reach more customers, make efficiencies in their operations through cloud applications and APIs, utilize data to help them make better decisions, help them understand their regulatory commitments so that they can stay compliant and stay safe from cyber criminals, and help them understand the threats they pose to their business. Today, we're going to go through data privacy. So over the next 15 minutes or so, we're going to cover what is GDPR, why is data privacy important, what support is available, and then we'll finish off with some next steps. So what is GDPR? GDPR is the General Data Protection Regulation, which came into force on the 25th of May 2018. GDPR is global in that it affects any company that processes personal data that identifies living individuals that are EU residents. Customers, prospective customers, ex-customers, and employees are all in scope for GDPR. The Information Commissioner's Office, or the ICO, is responsible for enforcement within the UK. However, an individual has the opportunity to ask any supervisory authority in the EU to assess compliance with GDPR. The ICO is the UK's independent authority set up to uphold information rights in the public interest, promoting openness by public bodies and data privacy for individuals. It's the ICO's website that will support you step by step to meeting your obligations when processing personal data. And I'll provide you a link to their site later in the session. We'll see from the next slide how GDPR has strengthened the rights of individuals with regards to their personal information. Not only are individuals' rights enhanced, other safeguards on processing have been introduced for companies to be aware of, such as formal recording and reporting mechanisms for security breaches, requirements to document privacy impact assessments, and, as you can see from the slide, huge potential penalties if you get it wrong. So let's move on to an individual's rights. Now, I mentioned previously that GDPR has strengthened individuals' rights. So what can customers and staff expect from this? In regards to the data that is held physically, it's important to note that any physical records, for example, paper, as well as electronic data, are in scope under GDPR. Electronic data, In regards to the data that is held physically, it's important to note that any physical records, for example, paper, as well as electronic data are in scope under GDPR. Electronic data will typically include structured data, so held in a database, and unstructured data, for example, emails, as well as standard personal data, information such as IP address and location data is now in scope. It's worth considering how any requests for copies of information, erasure, objection, and rectification, and so on will be handled. You will have 30 days to respond. There's also a cost element. So previously, people would need to pay £10 for a subject access request to see what data a business held on them. The response was required within 40 days. Once the GDPR has been introduced, a subject access request will be free and need to be done more quickly within those 30 days. Now, you're all probably thinking that from a personal perspective, all these rights make complete sense, but then you've lost me when you started talking about data controllers and data processors. And we'll look at these now and how they'll apply to your business. So your business and what GDPR could mean to you. GDPR defines two roles, and it's crucial for you to know as a business, are you a data controller, a data processor, or both? Let's understand both of these now. So a data controller means a person who, either alone or jointly or in common with other persons, determines the purposes for the manner in which any personal data are or are to be processed. A data processor in relation to personal data means any person other than an employee of the data controller who processes the data on behalf of the data controller. So how do you check? So businesses that collect, store, and use data using only their own systems are both a controller and a processor. Those using third-party applications or storage are controllers. Those providing applications or storage to other organizations are processors. and those that provide a service to other organisations, including having access to and using their customers' or employees' data, are processors. So now we've talked about what a data controller and processor is. What do we need to check? Well, if you're a controller, you need to consider the following things. Do you need all the data that you're capturing? If not, then why are you asking for it? You should only hold personal data for the time that it's required, so you may need to review your storage and destruction processes. Have you explained the purpose of the data to the individual? Does everyone in the organisation need access to that data? And are contracts with data processors reflective of the revised obligations under GDPR? And if we're looking at processors, location is important. For example, if the data is being stored by an organisation in the US, there is an obligation to designate a representative within the EU. Check what security you have in place to ensure that data is not stolen and you're not breached. You need to ensure you've protected the data to the best of your ability. Simple cyber hygiene, such as password policy, firewalls, antivirus softwares, and staff training, things like our cyber webinar, are important. If you use the data for purposes that haven't been agreed with the data controller, you could be in breach and the controller could seek damages. It's essential to check any contracts that you have in place. Now, one word that pops up on this page twice, and I have highlighted before, is the word evidence. Under GDPR, evidence is going to be essential. To give a prime example of a different type of industry that uses evidence is if your company prepared food. You have to document the following: when you place the food in the fridge, the shelf life and the destruction date, and also other things like food temperatures. So this all has to be logged so that when you get checked by food standards, you have all this information documented to prove that you adhere to the regulations. If you didn't have this evidence, food standards would close you down. The rules are extremely similar under GDPR. You have to evidence every part of the journey of taking someone's data, and if you don't, then the ICO can hit you with a large fine. So why is data privacy important? So GDPR enhances individuals' rights, and crucial to any processing of personal data is the security measures that you apply. So security breaches, when we're talking around personal data, disrupt business, and it can take a long time to return to business as usual. Whilst there are many ways that you may risk not complying with GDPR, for example, sending marketing material to an individual who's opted out, or not responding appropriately to a subject access request, the loss, accidental destruction, or theft of personal information is a key risk to your business, and there could be a cost impact through loss of business or having to repair damage. Because of a data breach, your reputation could be negatively impacted, destroying the trust that you've built up with your clients over a number of years. If you do not adequately protect and process personal information of your staff and customers, you can be fined by the regulator, the ICO. In November, the ICO fined ride-sharing company Uber £385,000 for failing to protect customers' personal information during a cyber attack. And in January 2019, British Airways and Marriott received the largest ever fines under the EU's new General Data Protection Regulation. The UK Information Commissioner's Office, or the ICO, has proposed a fine of $230 million on British Airways for an incident that took place from June to September 2018 and compromised the data of 500,000 customers. The ICO gave Marriott a $123 million proposed penalty for the loss of 339 million guest records. Both companies have the opportunity to respond to the fine before the ICO issues a final decision, and both companies have already indicated that they will appeal the decision. These fines are important for reasons well beyond numbers. GDPR is a very broad rule with little detail, and companies have had few insights into how the regulators in the EU would interpret the law, particularly what they would consider adequate security measures. The maximum GDPR fine is 4% of a company's global turnover. The fines for British Airways and Marriott both represented 1.5% of their respective turnover, and the Commission said both companies cooperated fully with their respective investigations. As an individual, how businesses look after your personal information is important to you. The same therefore applies to how your business would wish to do the same to the personal information of your staff and customers. It's not just a legal requirement, it's good business practice and the right thing to do. So what support is available? Now, I promised you earlier a link to the ICO guidance. Well, here's a selection, and the ICO website has lots of support for organisations. In particular, they have a number of self-assessments that you can utilise to understand how effective your data processing and security processes are, and steps that you can take to help mitigate the risk. We also have a guide to GDPR and provide cybersecurity support. You can also watch an on-demand version of our webinar. So let's have a look at the next steps now. Make sure that all of your staff are aware of the importance of data security. Utilize the ICO support material to identify any weaknesses in your processes and to keep up to date. And regularly review your data security to make sure that your processes continue to be robust. And that brings us to the end of the webinar. Thank you very much for attending. I hope you found the information useful. Thank you once again. Enjoy the rest of your day.